Hey everyone, I'm Kloo. Welcome back to our little Build a Boss mini-series. So last time around we built our first boss just with two different abilities using this little coin flip machine and a timer mechanism. So we're going to build upon those ideas and create a more but not too complex boss. So first things first, I am going to add two more layers of this system. So right now this has two outputs, and for every layer we add, it's going to essentially branch off and add more outputs. So by having three layers, we'll be able to pick between four different outcomes and therefore give our boss four different abilities to choose between. So first things first, let's get to it. Nice and simple, we'll quickly just go over the system. So we're using a dropper into a hopper to randomly pick between either a piece of stone or a sword. And the reason we're using these two different items is the stone stacks to 64 and the sword doesn't stack, meaning that in terms of comparator output, they give off two different levels of strength. The stone will only light up this first piece of redstone, while the sword will ignite both, triggering either this torch or both torches. So from there, we've got our comparator into our two different branches. If both torches turn off, then this repeater is going to turn off and back on. If only one torch turns off, then this repeater is only going to turn on. Every time I click it, it's going to pick between the two. We got the left side to line up, and then the right side to turn off and back on. Right, so then all we have to do is tie the systems together. So off of this first chain, we're going to insert command blocks, and these command blocks are essentially just going to place redstone blocks here and here, so that we can trigger the two different branches. So right now, every 3 seconds, thanks to our timer system that we set up, this first branch is triggering and picking between these two outcomes. I'm going to quickly set up the command, and then we'll show off the two different branches. Right, nice and simple, just two command blocks. I used a nice little axis identifier here, so I know this way is negative x, negative z, positive z, and then I can just use the tilde along with the correct block placements. So for instance, 3 cross, 2 up, 3 back. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and then back. And then first one's redstone, second one's replacing it with air, so I'm using that system to create a quick pulse, triggering the two different sections. So every 3 seconds, the first branch is going to pick between 1 or 2 outcomes, which is then going to trigger the next branch, and then that's going to pick between a total of 4 different outcomes for us. So we just saw 1, 2, 3, not picking the bottom one for me, 4, at least once, there we go, 5. So now that that's set up, we've got our 4 different boss ability slots, and we can go ahead and make something a little bit more complex. So the first thing we're going to do to make it a little bit fancier is we're going to start using the tellraw command. So the tellraw command allows us to edit text that's put into the chat box. So we can change its color, we can make a hoverEvent, we can do lots of different fancy things. So we're still keeping the same sort of process as the previous episode. So we're executing at an entity that we're going to tag, and then we're only going to execute if there's a player within a set distance to that entity. So in this case, 20 blocks. Then we're just going to run the tellraw command to any player that is within that 20 block range. And now in these little slots, we can go ahead and add in our ability. So I'm going to make one of my favorite abilities, which is pocket sand. So usually I use the color to sort of showcase to the player whether or not it's something to be scared of. So dangerous, red, a warning, yellow, or something beneficial, green. So because this isn't going to do anything directly to the player, we're going to put it as yellow. So pocket sand, yellow, hoverEvent, and then here we can put a little description. This command that I am using, I will just put as a template into the description of the video so that you can easily copy it and edit it however you wish. So the husk blinds you with sand. That's our first ability. Now, of course, this is just the game telling us that it's using ability. We need to actually build the effect again. So there you can see pocket sand, because we haven't actually filled in the tag, so it's just looking for any entity. So the husk blinds you with sand. So we can go ahead and fix that. So it stops running, and we're going to put the tag nice and easy, just call it husk. So now we can actually create the effect using a chain command block, again saying it's conditional, and we're just going to use the same parameters again. So execute at tag husk if a player is within that set range, so 20 blocks. And this time we're going to use the effect command, give at all. No, sorry, I'm going to do at nearest. I like that a bit better. Distance, still within 20 blocks. It wouldn't make sense for the ability to trigger if someone's not within it in the designated range. So like they don't see the text, but then they still get the effect. And we're going to use darkness for, let's say, 5 seconds. Doesn't really matter what amplification. And we can go ahead and turn the particles off. So true for hide particles, because there's no reason to actually show the particles. The screen effect is good enough. So as it stands, the way we have it set up, there is essentially a 25% chance that the husk is going to use this ability every 3 seconds. This is sort of how I create a system of variation. Ideally, for common mobs, I would give them, say, 1 to 2 abilities, so that whatever timer mechanism we set up, it's not going to trigger ability every time. It's going to create a sense of randomness. But if we go ahead and swap it to easy, we can go ahead and summon a husk, give it the tag. So we'll summon husk, the tag, the entity, we can select it, add, and we'll give them the husk that I spelled poorly, like so. So now, whenever that side is triggered, as long as we're near the husk, we should get the effect. So I am just going to manually do it, make it nice and easy on us. Pocket sand, world goes dark. Oh, and they used it again by himself. That's the simplest way to set up a interactive chat display for the ability. I'm going to go ahead and give him 4 more, and then we'll go over a better tagging mechanism. Right, so I've set up the 4 new abilities, though we'll leave them for a second, and we'll go over how I want to set up actually determining the boss and giving the player the ability to, in a sense, create the boss in-game. So we're just going to use the tag command, and essentially all we're doing is we're going to look for a named entity. So name, we'll call it boss for the example. So as long as there's an entity named boss, so a player with a name tag can just type in boss and name any entity, it's going to tag them, add, and for our working example, we're using husk, turning it to always active. So as soon as a player names an entity as boss, it's going to upgrade them and give them access to all the different abilities that we've created. So we'll go ahead and rename an entity, boss. We'll use husks again. Husk, boss, is now tagged. Oh, pocket sand. A new one, please. Oh, sandy grave. So he tried to bury us. Oh, and again. What else you got? Come on. What is that? That's... Oh, there we go, behind you. Pocket sand, there's one more. Not that I could really show off this last one, since I'm not in survival. But thank you for your assistance. You can leave now. And we'll just go over the abilities quickly. So, we've already gone over the first one. The one we didn't see is this, just in chat. So again, it's the same sort of setup. All I've done is changed the text, so this bracket sense and what he's saying. As for the actual effect, well, I've limited it to within range of the husk, so 2 blocks, and he's just giving instant damage to the nearest player to act as though he's biting you. So it's a little bit more damage than his normal swing. As for the other one we saw, Sandy Grave, so execute at husk. This time I've limited the distance to 5 blocks. This variation also creates a sense of randomization, because for instance, although it might pick that ability, if the player's not in range, it's not actually going to use the ability. So it's a nice concept to sort of think about and tinker with. And then as for the actual ability, all we're doing is the same initial thing, so execute at the tag if the player's in range, but then we're running execute at the player, in this case the nearest player, and running fill, and putting sand on their position 2 blocks high. As for the behind you, same, similar setup, 20 blocks this time, so the normal range, and then the actual effect is run execute at a random player again. So we're using a second execute at to essentially determine who we're causing the effect at. So this allows for a positional effect. So the first parameter execute at the tagged entity determines a player within the range of said entity. But then the second execute determines that the effect will actually be used at the player's location. Time should be somewhere. There we go. So all we're doing is teleporting any entity named or tagged husk to the player's location to sort of simulate that they're popping up behind you. And that's the simplest way to just create a bit more variation and make it a little bit fancier with, of course, the hoverable text. Hope you enjoyed.